He was the kind of man whose silence made more noise than most people's shouting, a man whose tailored suit sat on his shoulders like armor, whose eyes carried the burden of wealth, power, and years of hollow victories. Yet today, Vincent Leclerc, billionaire, hotel magnate, and culinary empire tycoon, sat alone in the corner booth of his own luxury Manhattan restaurant. Leclerc Prime, looking not like a king surveying his kingdom, but like a ghost revisiting a grave. The flickering candlelight dancing against the edges of his weary face as he stared blankly at an untouched plate of lobster risotto and Wagyu steak. Meals fit for emperors, but unworthy of his appetite, because today marked 10 years since he lost the only woman who had ever spoken to his soul instead of his bank account, his wife. Marianne, the one person who made his empire feel like home, and whose death had turned his golden world gray. And although the room shimmered with chandeliers, clinking champagne flutes, and the polite laughter of elites in tuxedos and silk gowns, Vincent heard nothing but the deafening hum of absence, until a voice, soft, uncertain, and impossibly out of place, cut through the noise like a crack of thunder. "May I have your leftovers, sir?" And when he turned, he didn't see a waitress or an assistant or a publicity stunt, but a girl no older than 10, barefoot, her dress torn at the hem, her cheeks smudged with a city's dirt, her hair wild like she'd been running through wind and hardship, and her eyes huge and glassy and ancient in a way that made his throat tighten. Because they weren't pleading or rehearsed, they were honest, raw, and hauntingly brave. And before he could speak, before the waiter could shoo her or the manager could call security, he lifted his hand gently and said, "It's okay," because something inside him, something that had been sleeping for a decade, stirred to life. And as he looked at this child, who stood small and shivering next to a table where the wine cost more than most people made in a month, he didn't see a beggar or a nuisance. He saw something real, something true, something he hadn't felt in years. The unfiltered cry of need, of humanity stripped of pretense. And when he asked her where her parents were, she pointed to the frost-lined window where a woman, clearly her mother, lay, bundled in rags and hope. Her body curled like punctuation at the end of a long, unfinished sentence, and without hesitation, Vincent pushed the untouched plate toward the girl, then paused and said, "No, not leftovers. This is your dinner." And he pulled out the seat across from him, gesturing for her to sit, and she hesitated, stunned, as if kindness was a language she barely remembered. But then she climbed in, and the world paused, not because the restaurant demanded it, but because every soul in the room felt the tectonic shift in the air. And Vincent, still calm, ordered the waiter to to bring a fresh plate for the girl and another meal to be wrapped and delivered immediately to her mother outside. And the staff, confused and awkward in their performance-trained professionalism, obeyed, while the guests whispered behind champagne glasses, wondering if they were witnessing a scandal, a stunt, or something sacred. And as the girl began to eat carefully, like each bite might be taken away, Vincent asked her name, Lily. She said, and then she told him, bit by hesitant bit, but lost her job after fainting from exhaustion. How shelters were full or dangerous. How they stayed warm by huddling near subway vents. How some people cursed them while others pretended not to see them. And Vincent listened not with pity or polished philanthropy, but with a raw ache in his chest that deepened with every word. And he thought about his own daughter, Amelia, who hadn't returned his calls in months, who had grown cold and distant over the years, angry that he had buried his grief in money and meetings instead of memories and moments. And suddenly, Lily felt like a messenger, quiet, hungry angel, reminding him of all the good he'd forgotten how to do. And when the hot meal arrived for her mother, Vincent took it himself, walked outside in the freezing night, and knelt beside the woman who looked up in fear and shame until he said gently, "You're safe," and tears streamed down her face, not from hunger, but from being seen. And back inside, something extraordinary began to happen. A couple near the window sent over chocolate pastries for the girl. A woman from the bar took off her cashmere scarf and wrapped it around Lily's shoulders. A chef in the back whispered to the staff to prepare extra meals for anyone who needed one tonight. And even the stoic Mottardi quietly placed a heater outside near Lily's mother so she'd stay warm, because Vincent's single act had broken the dam, had reminded everyone of the humanity buried beneath designer clothes and expensive wine. And as the night unfolded, Vincent laughed freely, laughed for the first time in years, as Lily told him jokes, showed him her drawings made on napkins and the backs of flyers. And when dessert came, a rich, molten chocolate cake, she clapped like it was magic. And Vincent felt tears threaten his eyes as he realized he hadn't shared a meal, a real meal, in years. And when it was time to leave, he didn't just pay the bill, he changed lives. He arranged for Lily and her mother to be taken to one of his hotels, not for a night, but indefinitely. And he made a few calls, one to his lawyer to set up a trust for Lily's education, another to his foundation to assign a care coordinator, another to a physician to visit them first thing in the morning. And then he called Amelia, when she answered, he didn't talk about business or blame or the past. He simply said, "I'm sorry. I miss you. Can we start over?" And to his surprise, she wept and said yes. And over the weeks that followed, Vincent changed not with headlines or grand speeches, but with quiet, consistent love. He began volunteering at shelters, funding women's recovery programs, joining Lily and her mother for Sunday breakfasts, where they laughed over pancakes and shared stories, and slowly, without fanfare, he became a father again, not just to Amelia, who forgave him, but to Lily, who adopted him with the silent devotion only a child knows. And the story of that night spread not through tabloids, but by the people who saw it, who felt it, who whispered it like a parable. The night a millionaire was reminded that the richest thing in life isn't wealth or power, but presence, compassion, and the courage to listen when a hungry little girl dares to ask, "May I have your leftovers?"